Hey guys, I wanted to just briefly touch today on the two major types of seizures. I'll be going into more detail on different types of seizures more specifically in later videos, but just to give you an overall view in case you don't already know or in case you wanted to help explain it to someone. So I actually looked up the official definition of a seizure, first of all, on the Johns Hopkins Medicine website, which has some great information about seizures if you want to go do your own research. But technically, I'm going to read it right here for you. A seizure is a burst of uncontrolled electrical activity between brain cells, also called neurons or nerve cells, that causes temporary or abnormalities in muscle tone or movements, behaviors, sensations, or states of awareness. So the movement part is usually what people think of, the flailing around, the either stiffness or twitching or limpness. It can be a variety of things, but it can also come across as just like staring absently. That's called usually an absent seizure, but it can also affect your behavior, your mood, just abnormal behavior, abnormal sensations. Awareness is different. That part is a little harder to explain, but I'll go into that later too. But they're not all alike. They can even differ from person to person, or even with the same person. You might always have the same type of seizure technically, but have it be different every time. The seizures may evolve over time. I know mine certainly have. From one type to another. But yeah, so seizures can be triggered by a number of things. It can be if you've been in a severe accident or had a severe illness, such as meningitis. Anything that affects the brain can potentially cause you to have seizures if you haven't had them before. It can be passed on genetically. I was just reading, actually, they can be caused by developmental scars as a baby or a fetus can also trigger or cause seizures. But most people for seizures have some sort of medication they take to control it or manage them. Others that are more hard to control, some people turn to brain surgery or the vagus nerve stimulator, which is like a little pocket thing that we'll go into that later too. Anyway, yeah, so some people only have a seizure one time, maybe from an accident. Other people have seizures that recur, that come back a lot, or on multiple occasions. And after a certain point, once you've had them a couple times and they keep coming back, it is considered epilepsy. If you've only had a couple, like one or a couple here and there, it would be more considered either a seizure disorder or simply that you had a seizure. So there is a difference. It's kind of a blurry line from what I understand, especially even with conversations I've had with neurologists. It's, they kind of have to talk to the person and feel it out to decipher what you have or what you don't have, whether it's a seizure disorder or epilepsy itself. Yeah, so moving on. The two main types of seizures are generalized onset seizures and focal onset seizures. So a focal onset seizure starts in one area of the brain and spreads to other areas. And the symptoms can be mild or severe. It may just be, like I said about the absent seizures, just kind of staring into space and not registering anything. That may be a more mild version. But obviously the more severe ones are what people typically think of, or what the stereotype is, the kind of convulsing limbs and eyes rolling back in the head and loss of consciousness. Other times you may stay conscious. So yeah, I'm gonna check my notes if I'm missing anything, but that's the general definition of a focal onset seizure. And like I said, I'll go more into that in a different video. And as for generalized seizures, they can also start in one area and spread to many or several or just two areas of the brain, but they also may be starting on both sides of the brain simultaneously, but independently of each other, and spread. And yeah, I guess as for the generalized onset ones, those ones often start during childhood for most people who have that type. And of course, there's also a third category, which is just sort of the unknown category, where neither the person experiencing seizures or the doctors can tell whether it's a focal seizure or a generalized seizure or something else. I am actually studying something called neurosculpting, and the lady who founded it, Lisa Wimberger, writes in her book, I think probably both her books, about how she used to have seizures because she got struck by lightning. You can read about it, but she had this type where she would just freeze up, like just her entire body would freeze and go cold. So it was a total brainstem response. So, you know, most mammals and most animals, let's say, have the three layers of the brain, right? The brainstem, the limbic system, and I'm blanking on the name, prefrontal cortex? Anyway, I think that's too specific, but point being, the three main layers. So our outermost layer deals with thinking, and the limbic system is more about emotions, and the brainstem is just like survival mechanisms. So things that you don't have to worry about too much because it's unconscious, that, you know, so your breathing, your digestion, your brainstem is responsible for making sure all your organs are doing what they need to do without you having to think about it every second of every day, because otherwise you just couldn't. So reptiles and several other, I think there's a couple other types of animals, have just developed to the brainstem level. Other animals have brainstem and limbic system, and a lot more have all three layers. And reptiles are known for doing just what I was talking about with Lisa, where she had these seizures where her body would go cold. She would essentially be like dead or borderline dead for, you know, however long the seizure lasted, which can be very dangerous. But that is actually something that reptiles do in nature in order to avoid being detected by a predator. They will, you know, just freeze up and allow their body temperature to go down so that it becomes the same temperature as their surroundings, so that the prey can't detect that they're there, or the predator can't detect that they're there, right? Until the danger is past, and then they'll be able to bring their body temperature back up to normal and continue on their day. So, point being, that's sort of the type of seizure that she had was like truly a brainstem response. It's also very dangerous though if you're alone, because if that goes on for too long, obviously you could actually die from that. So not to scare anyone, but just to give an example of other types of seizures. I'm not a neurologist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not any expert of any kind except for having the seizures that I have. But I like to share knowledge I've come across. So obviously, if you don't know what type you have, see a neurologist, ask your neurologist. The internet is helpful to an extent, but it's also full of crap sometimes too, so be careful with that. So yeah, those are the main types of seizures I wanted to talk about today. Like I said, will be going into more detail in future videos, but for now, just wanted to do an overview. And I'll catch you guys next time. Thank you so much for tuning in, for liking and subscribing and all that stuff. If you are doing that, I appreciate it. I hope you are all doing well, and catch you next time. I think I already said that, so bye!